5 months. 5 months since... It's been 5 months. 5 months since Murder Drones ended. It feels kind of surreal that it all ended in the way that it did.
You don't know me and I hate you!
Kinda hot?
I didn't think it will end like this, honestly. I already started college again, I'm talking about the digital circus, and in the future I'd like to get into Warhammer, but damn how time flies. Look, I haven't changed my mind about the ending, but today we're not going to talk about that. I want to finish this series of videos in a complete way, addressing topics that I didn't talk about before, because until now I was analyzing each episode trying to ignore the rest of the series, but now I can talk more extensively about it. I didn't do it before because it's like talking about a puzzle without having all the pieces, but it's time. I will talk about practically everything that goes from animation to shipping. However, this video will be the most subjective of all, because contrary to the analysis to the episodes where I try to be as subjective as possible, here I will give my point of view of the series in general. And there are issues that I think could have done better. I will try to be objective even if I do not like it, but understand me. I started this series of videos because I love this series and that love went away. In fact, it's funny to see the character development I got when I saw my videos all at once. So this is made from my point of view. So let's bring this manga arc of my life to a close. To begin, we should think what made it stand out from the rest, since this is not the first Glitch project and it's not the first web series made by an independent studio either way. You need something, anything to stand out, and we can see this from the pilot, starting with its technical level. Meta Runner doesn't look bad, but there's no comparison with this, and that is the episode with the worst animation. And this series knew how to sell itself. It knows that its target audience is mostly teenagers, but it makes the most of it. Let's start with the basics. The design of the characters are quite attractive, and yes, I'm talking about that.
Am I dreaming or did you do something not?
Why do they have to look like that? Why V and J are more thick than the last Miss Universe?
Sí, mírala, esa minita, esa quiere tu pene.
Liam and Glitch knew what they were doing. Same with the humor, their setting, and even the protagonists. As I said in my first video, the series drinks a lot from anime, but what finally sold me was...
Dad?
This series knows when not to take itself seriously. It knows that it's a product for teenagers and it makes fun of that trope. Well, of all tropes. The series committed tropes but made fun of them, so that when it was really serious, it surprises you. This scene of Khan abandoning his daughter was very clever, taking the viewer by surprise and making something very clear. Do you think you know me? Dude, you don't know anything about me. The series subverts your expectations all the time, for better or worse. The series takes the cliches of its genre and makes fun of them. Then it doesn't take that route, but a completely different one, seating and interesting the viewer as you're intrigued by how characters that seem to come out of a fanfic face things that they're not prepared for. That sold it for me since the beginning, and we see it with its protagonist, Uzi. She seems like an OC of some edgy teenager. She feels like a character that would have been the villain or the rival of some other story. However, like any edgy teenager who acts like a bad guy, the moment things get serious and it's time to act like adults, they break down and run away to their mom's arms. We see this from the first episode, where we could already see moments in which that edgy facade breaks, showing us someone quite real actually. Don't lie, everyone was a cringe teenager once, and unlike the cliche of the emo Avenger, it has a reasonable justification. She grew up in a boat all her life waiting to die. Her mother is dead, her father is an incompetent who practically abandoned her, and her classmates hate her. You understand why she's an edgy emo always on the defensive. Throughout the series, she has moments of vulnerability to understand that she's not a comic book supervillain, that she's not above the situation, and that she's getting into things way out of her league. This series takes the cliches and puts them in situations that they are not made to be in. For example, Khan, Uzi's father. Whenever fiction family members get involved in the situation, they're usually only there to give emotional support and not intervene directly. For example, Ben's parents in Ben 10 never had to face Bilgax, and when it happens, most do the right thing. But what if they didn't? What if they threatened Ben with leaving if he didn't stop? What if they really left? The only time I remember seeing something like that was in The Dark Knight Rises, when Alfred abandons Bruce Wayne, and in JoJo's Golden Wind, when Fugo abandons the group for fear of Diablo. I thought he would come back later to help Batman, but no, Alfred really left and didn't came back. The same with Fugo. He didn't do the cliche of abandoning the protagonist to later regret it and come back to save them at a key moment. No, he really abandoned Passione for fear of Diablo and never came back. Khan really abandoned his daughter to die for being a coward, and like Alfred, by the time he came to his senses, it was too late. It's a case of a true coward, not someone who claims to be a coward but you know he will help in a decisive moment. He really is a coward. Same goes for his co-star, N, who is basically Papyrus from Undertale. But what if you take Papyrus and put him in Jujutsu Kaisen? I love characters who are pure-hearted good guys, but I especially love N because he's a good guy who has to deal with some really fucked up shit. His life was a lie. His sister is a Lovecraftian monster who ripped him apart into a killing machine after destroying everything he loved. It's interesting to see a breath of God dealing with a raging hell. That's why everyone loves him, and I actually think he would have been a better protagonist. But as you can see, the best thing about this series are its characters. Each one of them is quite charismatic, and you have to recognize the great work of characterization. Since all the worker drones are built from the same model, so you only have the hair and clothes to make them look different. And boy did they achieve it! Each character has individuality, even the background ones. They don't all look the same unless there's a reason for it. Just with the clothes, hair and color palette, each one looks different from the last, but at the same time maintaining similarities, since after all, they all start from the same base. They all start from the same model. As you can see, the best part of the series is always about its characters and how they act under the circumstances. They're also very charismatic, following the line of Liam's characters who are not necessarily super innovative, but they stick in your mind. Even the ones you don't like, you can clearly identify in them. When cosplayers cosplay your characters, you know you did something right. And I see these characters at multiple conventions. This added to the technical section, its music and ambience is very well done. The music all starts from the same base, disassembly required, but each piece sounds different and appropriate for each circumstance. For a dance, for a contemplative moment, for moments of horror, maintaining that iconic theme. Speaking of horror, the protagonists being robots are not only to help the animation, since animating humans in 3D is much more complicated to make it look good without them looking like plastic dolls to a certain extent, but it also has the added bonus that you can be as visceral as you want. Here the deaths are creative, and since everyone is robotic in the series, it makes that when something organic appears, the whole atmosphere changes completely. When something organic appears, you know that things are serious. And also helps to not overload the series with gore. Horror is not measuring gallons of blood, and if you see gore all the time, eventually it loses impact. Here, however, when you see blood and not oil, you know it's time to run. And although the series is not the epitome of horror, it knows very well how to make you nervous. And for me, that is due to the difference in power. The murder drones are shown to you as the most terrifying creatures in this series. They're literally angels of death, and they set the bar for what danger means in the series. They're the peak of power and are used for a maneuver that in economy it's called anchoring. Let me explain with an example. Imagine that I'm going to sell you a car that is worth $30,000, but when I'm going to sell it, I say that it's worth $60,000, but it has a 50% discount. Unconsciously, you have anchored yourself to $60,000, so now those $30,000 look more attractive. The series does the same, anchoring you to the fact that the most dangerous and powerful beings in the series are the murder drones, robotic beings. So when something appears that is above that, you engage the viewer's attentions, and it helps a lot that that something is something with Lovecraftian overtones. And all of this with a humor that is very well placed, mostly.
How you doing, kids?
That doesn't break your immersion, mostly. And that's what makes Murder Drones great for me. Its characters, its music, the horror, the apparent character development that was coming, and a well-placed humor. As I said, the series doesn't have innovative characters, but it will be interesting to see these characters interacting on a world which wasn't made for them. Watch them move across the plot. All of this is what made Murder Drones stand out for me. So, Liam and Glitch will make the most of these topics, right? That's what they did, right?